I don't remember what episode we're on.
We're on 031.
Is it 031?
Yeah.
Welcome to Circa Ignem, episode 031.5.2 and a half. 031 and a half. It's like the Lion King 1.5.
The prequel to the sequel.
We're I don't want to say we're closing up the story because that makes it sound like we're going to be wrapping this up in 15 minutes. I'm sure that's not the case, but we are wrapping up the second part, diving into the second part of Eli's testimony, and it's been a while since we did part one.
Yeah, was it in October? 2 months ago?
I think it was. I think November. It might have been early November, but it couldn't have been past late November or mid-November.
Yeah, but we never released it, so no one's ever going to know, or would have known. And so, if you haven't paid attention to the timestamp, as you're listening to this, today is January 13th. So it's been a while. There's been a lot of life in between, and holidays and a lot of stuff. So yeah, it's been good. But how'd the holidays and all that stuff treat you guys?
They were great. A lot of family, a lot of church. They were great. I mean, really, those were the two main things. I think we bounced around from the church to the family gatherings all holiday season. Yeah. So, I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, ours was great too. It was especially just a beautiful time of. We had this reflection going for Advent on Padre Pio, and I loved. I highly recommend it. I need to get the name of the author, but I didn't realize how devoted Padre Pio was to the baby infant Jesus.
Oh wow, nice.
Like there's a ton of like miracles or just like quasi miraculous events where people are just witnessing him walking in like the dark San Giovanni Rotondo, and he's like lit up. And he's just staring, like he's holding the baby Jesus, and he's just staring at the baby Jesus, and he's just like walking to and from prayer, and he's just like completely captivated. Wow. It's fascinating, like all these stories. But so, anyways, in a nutshell, it was beautiful to like walk through Advent with that kind of reflection. With arguably, I've always seen Padre Pio as like really stern and really like. Fire and brimstone, we'll just put it that way. And this was a cool like flip side of like, oh wow, like this was a man that was deeply in love with a child, the child, right? Like Christ as a child. And
did like he wrote it? Is it these like his writings? Or?
It's from it's testimonies from those that lived with him or visited him that were written down by someone else. So it's all firsthand accounts. Some of them there, or most of them at San Giovanni Rotondo, and then there's actually one or two that were in the U.S. that basically like he appeared to them.
Yeah, by location.
Yeah, I think it was either by location. It was post like his death, but he appeared.
They got the smell of cigars.
No, it was actually.
Wait, is that a thing? Or
I thought you told me that.
No,
that people smell. Oh yeah, no, I haven't read that.
That's awesome.
People,
I'm over here laughing.
You know how some states have the smell of like flowers.
Like roses,
His is like a tobacco-y kind of musky sound.
Awesome. Damn. Yeah, no. One of them was he apparently, and this happened a number of times in the miracles that have been attributed to him. Is he shows up in a basically like a raincoat and cap, which is interesting. Like, so he's like this, basically like this stranger that like, it's just like, it's so funny. Like, but people are like, no, it totally was Padre Pio. Like when they actually go back and like work through the facial like expressions that they do remember and stuff. They're like, oh, that was him. You know,
that's awesome. So, what's the name of this? Is it a book or?
It's a book. I'll bust it out at one of the break or one of the breaks, and we can drop it in the show notes as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cigars. So you like I'm a long way away from it. But if I ever became a saint, it's like I want people to smell like barbecue smoke. Is that post oak?
Ricardo?
Saint Ricky?
Saint Ricky. Patron saint of post oak. No, that's interesting. That reminded me of we had a retreat November with maybe early December, Father Jim Blunt, and he taught us the chaplet of the Infant of Prague. Have you heard of that?
No.
So, and I didn't know, so he taught it to us, but apparently, so I did some research on it, because, I've been making rosaries and stuff, not to plug that or anything, but...
but you are.
Yeah. But so I sit at the back at these retreats, and I'm making rosaries and, special orders for people and stuff, and so I was like, you know what, I'm going to make a few of those, because I bet they'll sell. And they did. I sold out, but I was doing my research on it, and apparently this thing's not like a new devotion.
Oh.
It's like early 1800s, if I'm remembering correctly. It might have even been like 1500s. But it was like given to a nun in a vision, and they call it the Little Crown Chaplet. But it's the Infant of Prague, and it's cool. It's real quick, because Father was like, make a promise that you'll pray it every day, which I've horribly failed at. But it's 3 Our Fathers, which is one for Jesus, one for Mary, one for Joseph, and then 12 Hail Marys.
Nice.
And it's one Hail Mary for each year of Jesus' childhood, basically. It's kind of cool.
That's awesome.
Cool. 3 Our Fathers, 12 Hail Marys, and that's pretty much it. So, but yeah, the devotion to
that's cool.
His devotion to the infant reminded me of that.
So is it post Infant Jesus of Prague, or is it
the chaplet?
Yeah.
Or like when the vision happened?
Yeah.
I think it was post, because the whole thing is dedicated to.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the Infant of Prague chaplet. Yeah. So it's pretty neat, but
one of the things that I was just not to. Well, let's go down the rabbit hole. I think one of the beautiful things.
Are you stalling?
No, I'm not. I promise I'm not. I really this. It was cool. It was a cool Advent spiritually, in terms of this reflection of the King and our Creator comes as a defenseless baby, right? So the person that could smite everything in this world chooses to completely make himself 100% vulnerable to anything and everything, right? And that's just one. That's just one reflection that you can really chew on and be like, so what does that say about me?
Yeah.
In a good way, in terms of he chose to, if I was the only one to save, he chose to take that form, right? To show me the path, right, to holiness. To your point, the path to sainthood is very countercultural. It is radically countercultural, right? In everything we understand, right? It's that in order for us to be strong, we need to be vulnerable. In order for us to be men, we need to not be arrogant and prideful. We actually need to be humble and quiet, right? And reflect through our actions more than anything else. Now I am stalling.
To piggyback off of that, there was a homily, I want to say it was Father Michael, maybe it was online, YouTube or so, I can't remember, but where he was talking about how everything you were saying about him coming as a vulnerable baby and having to rely on Joseph to stand out there and guard.
Yeah.
And as the shepherds were walking up.
It was Father Michael.
It was Father Michael.
That was awesome.
The shepherds are walking up in the dark and these shadowy figures, and he has to stand there and be like, who's there and who is it? And then he gets to decide to allow him in to worship the baby Jesus.
I loved it because Joseph, our devotion to Joseph should be such that Joseph would have taken his responsibility as the father of Jesus to say, in order to enter, you need to take all of the things that protect you, all of the masks. That was one of the things he talked about, was that knife, that staff, all of those things that you are using to create these illusions of who you are and create this bravado. It's he knows all of it.
Leave it at the door.
Yeah, leave it at the door. Because if you want to enter and adore him, those things need to disappear. Because he knows exactly who you are. He was like,
Yeah. That was a great homily.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about Advent, and by the time people hear this, it's going to be well into ordinary time, I think.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Advent 2025.
No, I'll start editing.
We just...
this will be what? This will be the third or fourth episode that we've done? Yeah, third. So if we schedule it out, then we're good.
Yeah, no, it's... Yeah. One last quick tidbit, because it made me laugh talking about what we're just talking about right now. Did you guys see the Nate Bargatze gay role? Did you see that?
Yes.
It was pretty great.
Just thought about Joseph, and he's saying, like, many stories will be told about all, the people here. Joseph's like, and stories about me? Many stories. Many stories will be told.
Yeah. The pause. Yeah.
The pregnant pause, dude. Oh, man. It was so good. It was so good.
I love that he looks so much like the images of Gabriel too.
Yeah.
Like when he comes out, like I'm like, wow, you actually fit the role really well, bro.
Yeah.
I've seen some interviews about him recently, and I don't know exactly what Christian denomination he's part of, but from what I've heard, he lives a pretty faithful life.
Really?
Christian.
Awesome.
It'd be awesome if he was Catholic. I don't know if he is or not, but they were asking him why he doesn't curse on stage, and a lot of it has to do with being able to market yourself. You do TV, you do all this. You don't cuss, you can do more gigs.
Yeah.
But he was saying one thing he said that I thought was pretty good, and I was like, maybe I should practice this. He said he finds it a lot easier to not curse on stage by just not doing it in his life.
Oh.
And I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, come on, who's the comedian that just became Catholic? I think it was Nate.
Oh, Russell Brand?
No, Russell Brand too, but Nate Smith.
Oh, Shane Smith.
Shane Smith. Yeah. He talks about how there's so much more. It actually, his argument is it makes you a better comedian because you have to use it, like being vulgar is a lot easier than not being vulgar, right? Now, I'm going to admit that there is argument for both sides, fully, right? Because there are studies out there that show that people that use language are actually their IQ is much higher because the way that you use it in language is such that it proves that you know how to manipulate words and bend rules, right?
Oh, you can get real creative with it.
Yeah, and so, but what's funny is he was talking about how his content, like all of his writing, when he had made that commitment to stop using it or just vulgarity in general, was he's like, it forced me to be better at my craft because I had to tell the story in a way that was compelling, that was funny, that engaged people, but that didn't go to the base, right? Like where we all laugh at it because it's like, oh, that's funny, and he's like, but I can tell it in a funny way without going base,
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we are not having a lightning round tonight because we've done that already. So, so we're getting back into the story. I think we left off.
I think it was college years, right?
No, we were past that. We were into the Holy Child days.
Yeah. It was right when we stopped right. From what I recall, we stopped right at
like you
coming back from Virginia.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's what it was.
And getting back into right before getting back into the second.
You didn't have any more Virginia questions, Rick?
Well, no. It's funny. I was thinking about this whenever we picked the date. 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
Yeah.
I should be very clear that when I was talking about the two individuals that I was involved with romantically, that the being unvirtuous I wear completely. So that I'm not going to put that on the other people in the picture. That was me not being a man and me not being who I should have been. So we'll leave that right there, because I think just kind of reflecting, it could seem like I was blaming, and that's not who I am. So I will wear my culpability in those situations.
Gotcha.
But anyways, back to Holy Child. We're not gonna let Rick run with that. I can see him staring off. He's looking for the North Star, like, what deep question do I have related to this?
Well, he's thinking of deep questions, and I got jokes lined up. Just no, Manny, no.
Either my memory's horrible, or I wasn't paying that good attention because I was really thinking it was like I don't remember feeling that way at all. But yeah, anyways,
I didn't go anywhere.
It's a good thing to clarify.
Yeah, I felt very comfortable with what I shared. I didn't cross any lines.
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that because I think it could be perceived by people that don't know me that it was like, oh, it's a blaming game instead of like, no, I wear full responsibility for not being a Christian man in those situations.
Yeah,
so,
good for you.
That's the truth.
The way I heard you tell it was, if it weren't for these girls, you would have been a priest, but they pulled you out against your will out of the seminary. No, I'm just kidding. No. All right. So,
and with that,
you got pulled clawing and at the wall. No. So, anyways, so we're getting close to where I met you. So we're somewhere 2006-ish.
Yep. Came back June of 2006.
Was it June?
Yeah.
Wow, was it June?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man.
So I was so done with Virginia that I made the drive stupidly. I should have taken my time and visited some stuff on the way back.
Yeah.
Again, hindsight being what it is. But I made that trip back in 48 hours.
Oh, wow.
Crap. Yeah.
So I think I might have mentioned it in the previous one, but we're going to revisit it. My good buddy Zach, one of my groomsmen in my wedding, that's who I was staying with for our send off. I forget which Pirates of the Caribbean, but we went and saw one of the Pirates of the Caribbean
In theaters.
And it got to a point, because I was on a drive until you have to sleep, and then sleep for 15 minutes, and then drive until you have to sleep, and then sleep for 15 minutes, right? It's a stupid idea. For anyone listening, the dumbest thing. I'm surprised I made it across the country. I'm surprised I didn't die, now looking back. But at one point I was hallucinating that I was driving into whatever the tentacled guy is, Davy Jones. I was driving into his mouth on the highway, and it was very real. There was another situation where I thought that a van that I had already passed on the highway many miles back was still to my left in my whatchamacallit. What is that?
Your side mirror?
No, but where you can't see that.
Oh, your blind spot.
Blind spot. So every time I had to keep doing the crazy look over because I'm it's still there, and I thought it was actually there, and then I'd speed up and move over, and then 5 minutes later it's nowhere to be found. Right. So
you're nuts, man. I did the drive from Illinois to California in 48 hours, and the last 6 hours of that were really, really hard. Yeah. So I can't imagine an extra day's worth of driving.
So thankfully Nathan met me in New Mexico, and I think it probably was that I must have called home, and I think my parents were like, yeah, Nathan, you need to. They were like, we're not going to tell him, but you're going to meet him in New Mexico because he's going to die.
The tentacle man is chasing me.
So thank you, Nathan, for meeting me in New Mexico, because that was a godsend. Because basically from New Mexico, it was just a breeze, through the desert and Bakersfield and then up north. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So once you got back home, was it did you have a little bit of a vacation downtime or anything, or did you just Holy Child right away?
It's funny. I don't remember if I had downtime. I don't feel like I had much.
Yeah.
I feel like Nathan was already tied in with the Holy Child at that point. And he was, I believe, already transitioning out from city, looking at Steubenville.
He was.
Yeah. And so that would have made sense that he and, was it Brenda at the time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Brenda at the time. They would have been talking. So Brenda would have known that I was coming back. Mm-hmm. And I actually don't remember, to be very honest with you, I don't remember how it transpired that I landed as the manager there.
Yeah.
But that's my suspicion, is that Nathan and her were talking, and she said, oh, your brother's back, let's chat.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that's literally what happened is I showed up
Yeah.
because Nathan was like, hey, what are you doing? And I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just coming home because I need to be home, you know?
Yeah.
And then that's I think how Brenda and I got connected. So
Yeah. Well, it was all like perfect timing now looking back at it. Because I got hired there in April. I was like, man, I was only there for 2 months before you got back. I thought it was longer than that. But I got hired in April, and it was that summer the end of that summer when a lot of people were leaving.
Yeah.
And so Nathan was leaving and a bunch of other people, but Seth was leaving too.
Yep.
And so this was before you came back into the picture. I love Brenda, but in her very just I probably not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
I think because I was one of the few people who was sticking around, and the rest were like going to school, and I wasn't, and I had open availability. Pulls me to the side and was just like, "Hey, how do you feel about like managing this place?" And I'm like, I've been working here for 2 months, but like we can like, yeah,
Full send.
I'm down, you know. And so Seth had been working with me on like showing me how to do the ordering of the books and doing all that kind of stuff, and Nathan had like taken me to like Smart and Final Costco runs, like showing me how to. So it was basically like learning how to run the place,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden, it was like, hey, you guys hear Nathan's brother's coming home? And I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And so there were a few of us who'd never met you who were like, who is this guy, you know? And so, and I think I kind of touched on this last time, but I remember like we were also used to Nathan that there was almost like and I know you felt this looking back at it, but there was almost like a lot of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Reservation for sure, but also just a lot of like maybe animosity almost, you know, like it was kind of weird.
Well, especially because if Brenda had already been like grooming you, for lack of better terminology, right, like getting you set up to be the manager, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? Right, you know.
Yeah,
is that fair to
like,
say? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and like I didn't super have a problem with that, but and I won't name any names, but like there were certain employees there who were staying. None of whom we really talk to anymore. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Who were just like, hey man, like I'm on your side, or you know what I mean, like trying to like, and it's like I just remember it just being kind of weird, and you know. So they were interesting times, and I've always been curious to hear like your side of outside coming in. Like
It was felt.
Yeah.
It absolutely was felt.
Yeah.
I think it worked in my favor, to be very honest with you. I think it was it's actually a classic business move, like when you like really think about it, because if you, and this is I'm not disparaging you in any way, but typically it's really difficult for people to move into management, not always, but typically really difficult for someone to move up into management on the same team.
Yeah.
Because people that are your peers now have to actually see you as some sort of authority, and that's really hard to break.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of a sudden you have to tell people, hey, knock it off, and they're looking at you like, huh, you're funny, Rick.
Yeah.
Right? Versus I came in and there may have been animosity, and we'll get to this later, but I was also just interiorly a mess. Like I was trying to process what like the decisions I had made and what was going on from Virginia back. And so it may have projected out on you guys a little bit, but I was also trying to figure out a lot of who I was. I was trying to really get centered on like, okay, where's the North Star again? Like what is my mission? Who am I?
Yeah.
And I think the shop, like all of us have testified, it really helped ground me in terms of like, okay, there's a mission here. I'm part of this mission. I don't know what the hell I'm doing as a manager, but we're going to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was nice for me to step in. I totally felt the animosity, but it was also like, we need to do this, and I'm not going to be a jerk. Hopefully I wasn't a jerk. I wasn't trying to be a jerk ever, but it was like, we're all on the same team and we need to figure out how to move forward.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be a good idea for a quick recap for the listeners that don't know what the Holy Child was.
Yeah.
This part of the conversation might be like, what are they talking about?
So the Holy Child is a long-standing, it's no longer in existence, but was a coffee shop and bookstore.
Catholic bookstore.
Catholic. Both entities were Catholic, and the brainchild was Carolyn Mobest. And I was part of the original. I think we talked about that in the first episode as part of that like original or like second like generation, like Nick Andrade, so Father Michael's older brother. That some of that crew, Seth was part of that crew. I came on board later, and she sold to Brenda after there was a move, which is literally across the street. I'm not joking when I say across the street. We were toting stuff like we mentioned in the previous episode across. But anyways, really, really cool brainchild. Like really cool vision of a people that want to read and understand their faith tied in with both smoking cigars, smoking pipes, and drinking coffee. Unfortunately, no liquor license, so there wasn't.
Well, we weren't old enough either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Although, I remember having a fair amount of 2-buck chuck.
There you go.
That's where I learned about 2-buck chuck.
Yeah, I don't know how we got our hands on it. But
we don't need to share that information.
Not important.
Statute of limitations is passed 20 years ago.
Oh, it was that. It was all that guy.
Yeah. Who
His driver's license number is.
Who did we like the least? We'll pin it on them. Yeah. No, yeah. So, but I mean, I think we did just what you said. It's like hey, we got to do this. You know, and we did. Like it's. I feel like it was rough for a couple months, just kind of weird. Just kind of learning things, and but it ended up. I think we kind of hit, because it was weird. It was like that core group of people was leaving, like Seth, Christine were leaving, and Becca left, and Nathan left, and now Father Jacob left, and it was like, man, this is like.
And when we say left, they were leaving
to go to school.
To go to school. Like 90% of them were going to Steubenville.
Yeah.
Right? I think Father Jacob didn't, or no, he did. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he was.
He did. Yeah. Becca.
Same thing.
She did. Yeah. So 100%.
They were a lot of them.
I think
there were a couple who maybe weren't, but
almost 100.
Yeah,
like 90 percentile in terms of who was. So that, like, I think a number of guests have talked about this. That was the awesome part about like coming back, was we were so radically different, and what a hodgepodge, like what a mishmash of like totally different backgrounds, totally different people, but all that were authentically trying to live their faith. Yeah, authentically, like in a time frame, in a time period where that was not happening. Right? Like, and albeit again broken, like everything else, in this world, but at the same time, like it was awesome to be around. And again, like kind of bringing back like my own heart situation there. It was like healing and a balm for where I was at, like emotionally and spiritually, to be, even though there was like kind of like the, not drama, I guess there was a little bit of drama, but just like very clear, like that there was a little bit of, like tension going on. Yeah. But it was like, but I knew that we were all like trying to do the same thing. We were all trying to live a life and trying to serve Christ the best that we knew possible. And I may not have been able to intuit that at the time, but that there was that like foundational bedrock of like, okay, maybe people have issues with me. I don't know why, but at least we're both going to the same church, right? And we can see eye to eye in terms of like that these things all we agree 100% on. So
it did almost too, like, interestingly, eventually ushered in a period of that place where we had a decent amount of non-Catholics that ended up working there.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting.
Yep.
You know, like Charlie and Mathar.
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember that random kid we hired from Bullard, Adrian.
Yeah, I do remember.
You know, it's like, and there was, I forget who else, you know, but it was kind of interesting. It almost became like a different, like, way of evangelizing, kind of trying to, but
I think that was also the other crazy part, was like the normalcy with which we were living in a very normal, like a bookstore, albeit Catholic. It was a Catholic bookstore, but it, like, the layout for the listener was, think of like a horseshoe, and if you're looking with the bottom of the horseshoe towards like your chest, the bookstore's to the right, and it's literally like a reverse L shape, and then the coffee shop is the L on the left hand side, and you could see from either side of the businesses into the other. So like, you might have people that aren't like Catholic coming into the coffee shop, and we had plenty of regulars that were not Catholic
because the coffee was great.
Yeah, because we made fantastic coffee. We sourced great coffee.
It was better than Starbucks, I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
Like, I miss, like, come on, what was the one that Seth came up with? So, Slow Dance in the Fog?
Soft Dance.
Soft
I
Dance.
thought that was your name.
Was that mine?
Was that you? I thought it was you.
Dude, this coffee, I still cannot replicate it.
Yeah.
And it drives me nuts because we make coffee every morning.
Yeah.
Like, burr grinder, the whole bit. And
Yeah.
I'm like looking at Jamie like, what are we doing? You know? Anyways. So it was cool in that, like, you would have these conversations with people where they're like asking questions, and we were bold enough to just be like, oh, yeah, no. And we, like, you'd start to evangelize super normal and not like in your face, but it did. It created this element, and even again, both stores did it. Like the one across the street and there, you get people that, like, just passersby, walking along the street or on a date, and like they see the place. Oh, let's check this place out. They come in, and you're having these like pretty epic conversations of like, oh yeah, I was baptized once, in Catholicism, and then like you can tell, like, you're like pulling on these threads of like, there's no accident you're here. You know, like, this isn't an accident. There's no coincidence. That, like, at least for those of us that were on the team, it was like, no. This is why this place exists. It's to like draw people in.
Well, and then we started to do live music on Friday nights. And, and then that drew even more.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Which is funny now. It's like, because now we haven't talked about this on the podcast, but like now you and I are very much involved in the live music scene, like playing country music a lot throughout Clovis and different places. And I look back at that and I'm like, man, like, we could have been. That would have been interesting to do that.
Hammering it, Yeah.
I just remembered that I was in charge of booking for that for a little bit.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. That's right. But it ushered in a lot of good people and friendships that are still carrying to this day, because Manny came in that second round or second generation of people. Like, once the OGs left, the OGs for me, the OGs for you were completely different.
Totally. But still, like, there was always OGs for every one of us.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so to your point, like we all were OG at one point.
Yeah, but then we hired some solid people.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Manny got hired. You remember Rebecca Sauls?
Yeah.
Sasha, I forget her last name. Sasha.
She's a nun now, right?
Did she end up becoming a nun?
I believe so.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's like, and we brought it up. A number of guests have brought it up. That's the beautiful. I don't know how to replicate this. Like, I don't but it needs to happen, like, in communities. Yeah. Again, it's similar to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes commitment. And it just takes, again, back to, like, Brenda had this vision, Carolyn had this vision, and they drove it, albeit maybe not a moneymaker, but guess what? Like, there's a lot of sainthood for them to be had, and the amount of people whose trajectory in their spiritual life and their whole life have been radically changed because of their decision to say yes to that. Right? Like, you have an amazing, beautiful family. You have an amazing, beautiful family. I have an amazing, like, we have spouses that are amazing, right? Those are vocations. We have 2 priests out of there. We have at least 1 sister. Seth and Christine's family.
A lot of
a ton of extremely solid, authentically Orthodox Catholics that have come out of that. And by and large, what's crazy is when you do the percent number, really, like, statistically, there should be a higher mix of like 50-50 of us that stuck it out and 50-50 that didn't.
It's drop off.
Arguably, it's again, it's like 80 to 90% of the people.
Yeah.
Again, not naming names, but like 80 to 90% of the people are living authentically Orthodox Catholic lives.
Yeah.
You know?
I think one of the most amazing things about that place, and that would be the hardest to replicate again, is you're talking about 16 to mid 20-year-olds.
Yeah. Yep.
Where can a 16 and mid 20, or a young adult, where can a young adult right now go and be a part of something like that right now?
Yeah.
Cup of Joy?
Yeah, but even then.
No, I said that, I didn't mean it.
No, they credit to where credit is due.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, they're known for being Christian, and people gather there to speak about God and do their Bible studies and whatever they do there. But what was going on at the Holy Child?
Whatever they do there.
Well, I mean, people go for different reasons, but I do know
that they do at that place.
Easy, man.
That's not how I meant it. Sorry. But what I mean...
Wow.
Back to your point about it was 2 businesses. One side was the vintage coffee house. The other side was the Holy Child. Yeah. But it seemed like one. Even to people that weren't there for the Holy Child, it seemed like one business.
They knew it was the same business.
Yeah.
Like, there wasn't any mincing about it.
And
it
you
wasn't
have this young
entities.
adult, for lack of a better word, telling you like, oh yeah, that's great. Let me show you this book about it. Then they weren't even there for a book. They were there for a coffee.
Yeah.
It's how can we remake that again right now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I in fairness to Cup of Joy, like think about our community though. A lot of our own like awesomeness that was going on was happening post and prior business hours. When you think about it, right? Like, 100%. In fairness, we were a bunch of hoodlums that should not have been on the clock for, a good number of hours there.
Yeah.
That were just horsing around, in fairness, right? But the flip side of it was it also drew us into, like, we wanted to hang out outside of work because it was like, who else was there that was at least trying? Not that we were perfect, but that we were trying to live out an authentic faith. Yeah. And it's like when you started to be drawn into the other circles that you had, it was like, oh, okay, cool. Basically, I don't want to do that,
Well, and for some stupid reason, a lot of us trusted with store keys and alarm codes.
That's fair.
And, so, which kind of segues nicely into, wow, because we would hang out there, right? After hours.
Way
I mean,
after,
dude, I would leave there at 2 or 3 in the morning. People would leave and I'd be like, I'm gonna crash on the couch. And I mean, I slept on that couch a few nights because I had to get up and bake early in the morning, and so I was like, I'm just gonna sleep here. But one night in particular, segueing here, I remember hanging out with Josh Ompad, and I think we were like out at Holy Spirit. Like I think we'd gone to adoration, and then we went to dinner. And I don't know, I just being dumb. And they were like, hey, let's go hang out at the shop. I'm like, all right, cool. And so we go and pull up, and there was a purple Malibu and a white Sebring parked in the parking lot still.
It was not purple.
Maroon.
It's like,
and a white Sebring, and we're like, oh, we're like trying to go hang out, and so anyway, so you and Jamie,
where did you guys park?
We parked over by the what was it before? Was it a yoga studio yet? It was a
tennis
photo place or something.
You were on the other side of the building.
Well, because we saw you guys' cars, and
because were we in front of the building?
Let me just for the listener, just let me say. So Eli and his now wife Jamie, who you guys had known each other maybe a few weeks.
Yeah, we had.
And we're like, oh, like they're still here, and so we were like, well, we're not going to go in. This is going to be awkward, and so we kind of just parked off to the side and waited for you guys to leave.
You guys are just watching us.
Yeah,
It's
not. I
weird.
mean, we were. It was trying to make it awkward. I think what it was for some reason I had a Casio keyboard that I kept there in the office, and Josh, he was like, let's go, like, because he played too, and he was like, oh, let's go play the whatever and jam at the, and then you guys were still there, but so anyways, I don't know if that was the beginning or obviously around the beginning, but obviously you ended up meeting your now wife at this place.
So the one comment I'll make, because I needed Jamie's story needs to, like, she for sure will be on. I think all of our wives eventually should be on. She wouldn't classify it as like love at first sight. But there was a very strong attraction when like the first time that Brenda and I like met.
Yeah.
Like I believe she was working. It was the first, whenever she was working and I came in to meet with Brenda before I was like official. There was like, whoa, who's this guy? Right.
Yeah.
And I'll leave that for her to kind of share.
Bugs Bunny heart eyes.
Yeah. and in fairness, I saw her too, and I was like, oh wow, she's really pretty.
Yeah.
But this is where my story, like, right? So if we're focused on my story, again, I mentioned I was not in a good place coming back. And so there was conversation between her and I, both like what you guys saw, you know, out in front of the store that night, which is a beautiful moment. And we'll get to that in a minute. But what led up to that was like a lot of like one-on-one conversations, again, just in passing. And then also like texting and MySpace at that point.
MySpace.
Talking about MySpace.
She eventually made it into your top 5.
It was Tom, Jamie, and I don't know who else.
And so basically one of the promises I'd made before even getting in the car leaving Virginia to myself was, and I highly recommend this for people, is before you get other people involved in your life, you need to know who you are. And the only way that we really understand who we are is through Christ. And I don't think I think I'd been making an attempt, and an honest attempt. I'm not, hiding anything.
Yeah.
How old were you at this point?
I was, so this was 2006, born in 83. You're good at math, Manny.
No.
23.
Like Jason says,
Yeah, so
I'm really
20
fast.
Yes, thank you, Rick. 23.
So were you the one buying us the $2 truck or no?
Probably.
I'm just kidding.
Could be. Could have been. I'm not going to dance away from that.
No, I don't think you were. I don't think we liked you enough to have you buy us
I was going to
alcohol
say,
at that
I don't
point.
think I was part of those groups gatherings.
We would probably be afraid you were going to try to fire us if you found out we were. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure like there were times that we were like drinking there and saw your car pull up and we're like, hide the
I'm sure I saw stuff.
Yeah.
I think like I had at least enough like wit at that point to understand the battles to fight and the ones to not, and it was anyways. So my commitment to myself was, and I honestly, this is grace. This is all I can point to is grace of recognizing I'm going to not involve another person, meaning a woman, in my life for at least a year, and spend and devote time trying to figure out, okay, who am I and what do I want and where am I going, right? And so the conversation that you guys were witnessing was a culmination of a lot of attraction between Jamie and I, and a realization that we both had made the same decision. And we didn't know that until that conversation that you witnessed had happened.
Yeah.
Again, just a testament to the Holy Child of mind you, it wasn't perfect. We for sure held hands a number of times. We for sure snuck kisses every once in a while. I'm not going to dance around it. But that was it.
Yeah.
It was the first time I could look in the mirror that whole year and go, and I told this to Jamie repeatedly, leading up to when we made it like official, like that we were dating, was I truly want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Even if it means that it's going to hurt me real bad.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we as married men understand what that is like.
Yeah.
But to actually live that before you're even necessarily romantically engaged with someone is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And again, it was spending time in adoration. We spent a lot of time in adoration, both together and separately, and we prayed for each other, because the whole point was, like, you've made this commitment, I've made this commitment, and I'm damn well not going to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Because that's what you've made that promise before God, and so if I become an issue in that, then my soul is part of this equation.
Yeah.
You know. So it was again that set such a beautiful stage for I think what we're going to talk about next. Like it really, yeah. I'll just leave it there.
So before we head into that, is there anything else you want to touch on around that time period?
Let's see here.
So at this point, you weren't playing anymore, right?
Playing
music live.
No. I was still writing, and what's funny is I think I did play a couple pickup shows, like acoustically.
Well, you're obviously still very emo, saying things like,
still super emo.
If it hurts me, and you're...
Wow. That's a very Catholic thing, though, too. Yes. Yeah. So for sure, the rock scene, the music scene. So my buddies Matt and Noah, like, we're still very much like we connected right when I got home. And I was like hanging out with them for sure, not necessarily at shows, but I knew what was going on around town show wise. But again, there was also a distance of just like I'd been gone long enough to where I wasn't necessarily like to your point, Rick, like there wasn't this desire of like, oh, I want to get a band together and we're gonna take another crack at this. Like, again, I was in this mode of like, I gotta get my crap together. You know, like I don't know I think I was just disgusted with myself, to be honest with you. I was really tired of I think between the seminary and like the not being a man to the women, you know, that were in my life. There was just this like, dude, get it together. Like, and maybe albeit 23, most guys aren't thinking that, but to me it was like, dude, like, stop, just knock it off. Like, you don't need to. I think I was tired of the wake of like hurt hearts behind me. I was tired of feeling the way that I felt, and it was like, I say we, but that's the reality. It's like we got to figure this out, meaning like, Lord help me, you know, like I'm tired of being this way, you know. So again, going back to like the Holy Child being like a balm, you know, like a salve on a heart that needed a lot of healing.
Well, you did. It's funny to answer Manny's question. You did kind of continue to play music, but you transitioned into Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And then we ended up doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the transition, you got there before I did, playing at the Live Team band.
I didn't realize that you were kind of trying to.
I don't think he was.
No, okay.
I don't think he was.
No, I appreciate that. So that was again another shocker.
I didn't even know.
For me, So for me, thank you, Rick. So for me, it was. So I get back, 2006. I'm asked to manage a store. Then. So we're going to jump around here timeline wise. So the year, 2006, like June 2006 to basically July of 2007 is when, let's just say, Jamie and I are trying our best, and we did a really damn good job of like just being very respectful of each other and praying for each other. But again, it was platonic. Being very not romantic as best we could. By 2008 was when Holy Spirit, I was connected. I forget how I got connected with Sue Peters, but then it was full bore every Sunday, with maybe a weekend or two here or there in the year. It was full worship at the 11:30, which would have been the Life Team Mass. So thank you.
Holy Spirit is a church, by the way.
Yes. So Holy Spirit Catholic Church, and at this point in time, Life Team was like full bore.
Yeah, it was.
You know, in culture, not just at Holy Spirit, but just like in the church. Catholic church culture, it was rip roaring. And so the 11:30. Now looking back, it kind of makes my skin crawl, but it was beautiful for what it was. I'll be honest with you.
It ended up being good though. Like when we first joined on, and it was yeah. But like once we got Mike Mendoza in there, and then Matt joined along, and
the heart of that team was always.
And I do think while you and I would like never pick up a guitar and play drums at Mass again, like at that time, what we were doing, we were all very like the hearts were in the right place. Yep. And even when people moved on, it was like we were doing it for the right reasons. Yep. Yeah. There was a lot of like spirit of jealousy and different things in that choir pit that existed before that group. Yep. That it definitely was. But you eventually, I don't know if this is the right way to put it, parlayed that into a role as assistant youth minister there for like a couple years. Apparently, we're at the point of your story where I can just tell your story now.
No, you're good. It wasn't a parlay. Again, these are things that like I can't tell you. I will say this: I recognize the gift. Yeah, I recognize the gift that, and I say this with as much confidence and humility as I can. I can play music well, and I can speak well, and that those two don't necessarily exist in the same person often. And so I think Martha at the time was like, this guy's 24, 25, and he can play acoustic guitar, and he leads worship, and he can also teach Orthodox Catholic stuff relatably to people his own age, older or younger. What am I doing, right? I was also so it was mutually beneficial. To your point about parlaying, it was mutually beneficial at the time because, again, we're jumping around. I was now courting Jamie, and one of the conditions that her dad, not necessarily vocally, but I knew was an expectation was, you don't have your degree. If you want to marry my daughter, and it's not like a ultimatum, it was more just like, you need to get your crap together. Like, if you want to marry her and you want to take care of her and you guys are going to live authentic Catholic lives, it means that you're probably going to have kids, so you need to be able to take care of her, and you can't take care of her without a degree working as an assistant youth minister, so it worked hand in hand in terms of that.
But I love him, Dad.
I could go to school, be the assistant youth minister, help lead worship, still be tied into the community. So we're jumping around, but to your point, like that was a transition from Holy Child to that, So still tied into the Catholic community in some way.
Yeah, very much so. And I mean, we talked about this in my episode. It's just kind of funny how I think unintentionally you and I have rolled in a lot of the same circles or done a lot of the same things over the last 20 years. Like it's funny.
Lots of overlap for sure.
I mean, we can get into a lot of it, but so were you assistant youth minister when you and Jamie got engaged?
Yes.
You were still there?
Well, before we get that far, I want to hear more of how they started.
So that
don't skip the good stuff.
No, you're good. So
but before that,
so we'll roll it back a little bit here. We'll roll the tape back. So that night that Joshua Opad, Rick Valdez, who else was there?
It was just us two.
Okay.
It was just us. We were going back to hang out. And
I knew that. I knew you were there. I couldn't remember who else was with you there.
It was just him and I,
yeah.
Well, you guys won't believe what Eli said to Jamie. But if you stick around for after these commercials.
Wow.
Maddie's trying to go to a break.
Okay, let's go to a break. Right. Let's go to a break. Jeez Louise, man. We're not that pro. Hey guys, Eli here from Circa Ignem. Hope you're enjoying this week's guest so far. Just want to take a quick second to invite you to join our online community on all your social media platforms. We'll be sharing wholesome, Christ-centered content, and you can always stay up to date on the latest news and episodes. Listen, like, comment, subscribe, and share with all your friends. Thank you. Throw a log on the fire.
Throw a log on the fire, and we're back. So
or 5.
Yeah, it's going pretty good right now. Too bad we
feels great.
Don't do video anymore.
Yeah, it feels
We'll
really
go back
good.
to that.
Yeah. So Manny wanted some of the juicy details of
the scandalous details
of the courting,
of the genesis of Mr. and Mrs. Spencer.
So there was a strong attraction in the room when you entered. Then what?
I think you said the heavens opened up.
This is my beloved son.
Did he say Coldplay was playing?
That's actually a good question. Someone was playing. It probably was. If I had to guess, it was either Jack Johnson or
Taught me to cry.
yeah. What that playlist was on repeat a lot. So yes,
I was watching, waiting,
no
wishing.
mincing. For sure, a strong attraction. I think the cool thing is just some snippets from that year. A lot of time spent in adoration, both a lot together. And what's funny is often we'd be talking afterwards, and we'd end up on some random. So like St. Anthony of Padua had a 24-hour with a code adoration chapel, and so you could go any time of night. So we'd meet up either before before shift if we had the same shift, or typically it would be after shift. Whether we were working together or not, we'd meet up and pray together, typically for an hour, and then. So at this point, I was still living at my parents', which was 45 minutes outside of town. So not a small drive one way. But we would end up spending on some random person's lawn. Like we'd just hang out. No, I'm serious. Like we'd end up on some one of the houses in that. I'm sure there are people that have video of us at some point, like just hanging out on their lawn.
Well, this was before the Ring doorbells.
Totally before the Ring doorbells, but not before cameras, anyways, just a lot of just getting to know each other, right? Like talking and get like understanding who each other was, right? Like, and it was very clear that we are very similar. We love stupid humor, so we love like the Jim Carrey. We also love weird humor, so like we laugh at a lot of stuff that our kids look at us and they're just like, wow, like why is that funny? And it's just like it's just funny. Like what? Like there's that, but then also just I think also a depth of it. Praying together also draws out that vulnerability of also just sharing your heart, right? Like being who you are in front of someone. And part of that was a trust of just going, okay, even if this isn't meant, like if we aren't supposed to be married, this is supposed to, like what we're doing right now, this should be how two souls connect, right? And in marriage, even if we're not supposed to be married. So a lot of that in the year, if that answers the question. A lot of fun. That was the only stuff that we'd do one-on-one. We made the commitment that everything else would be in the group. So it would always be to help us defend against any sort of inclination to like not be pure with each other. It was always we did our best to make sure that like whatever we did activity-wise, if it wasn't adoration, that it was always in a group setting, and it paid like a ton of dividends. It just helped us stay out of any sort of stupidity with each other.
Yeah.
I think we were both totally focused on making sure she was her story's her story, but we were in the same boat, and I'll leave it at that in terms of like we both had made these commitments, and we were like our call was to protect each other in that and be really good friends to each other in that, And I think from a marriage standpoint, it sets such a good stage of what marriage is. It's not romantic all the time. It's not, and you guys know, right? Like anyone that's married is. And so for those that are married, you have a good understanding of this, or should have a good understanding of this. For those that aren't, like, marriage is hard. It is not easy. And I think I was sharing this on Saturday. I think it was Frad that talks. I forget who shared it with him, but like marriage is a mirror in a lot of ways, because you're forced to be, not you choose to be, but there's a forced like situation where you're with someone that you love, but it also is a reflection back of who you are and all the things that you're not to that person, if that makes sense. And his point is that we can continue to elevate by the grace of God to respond and be better for the other, or we can stay where we're at and continue to kind of be disgusted with ourselves in the mirror, right? So like the underscore of this is that's why there's so much divorce, is that people can't, if they don't go into marriage with this idea of this, I'm meant to lead this person towards heaven, and this person's meant to take me to heaven, right? And this is a sacrament, then all you're left with, if that's not a sacrament, is the staring at each other, and you're going, I'm not enough, and I never will be enough for you, right? And only by the grace of God are we enough for each other, right? So like the mirror element can be really daunting, because you're like, I don't know what to do with you, and I don't know what to do with myself. It was an interesting comment that he made, and it was like, wow, that's, yeah. So I don't know how we got there, but so a lot of this year really developed a deep friendship, and that's the underscore that I'm going to say is that marriage is very much like, as much as romantic and as much as sex is awesome, the reality is that you need to be friends. Like you really need to be intimately connected, and desire to, as you pointed out, Manny, like it is very emo in the sense of it is like I would gander to say that I would, you tell me to cut a limb off for Jamie, and I'll be like, okay, which one? You just tell me which one. No problem, right? There needs to be this element of I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that she is protected and that she makes it to where she's supposed to be going, because it's also me that's part of this, right? If she doesn't get there, then guess what? When I face the Lord, he's going to be like, you're a piece of shit, and here's how and why, right?
Well, it doesn't segue too well into the question I had, but
I was letting you ask the question.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. So up until this year, did you guys have a date in mind, or I mean, like, how did you guys determine when the year was up?
That's actually
you have it marked on your calendar.
We didn't have it marked.
I don't know how to segue into that for what.
No.
But it was beautiful what you said.
No, we didn't have a date per se. Yeah, I think we just knew that we had both made like a year in our own head of the date, and had maybe, I know I didn't mark it on a physical calendar, but I knew, okay, this was the day, and I'm like literally to the day. So I want to say summer of 2007 is when it was like, okay, this was another cool thing, super old school. I totally approached Laz, her dad, and said, I intend to like court your daughter. Do I have your blessing? Like there was an element of, at this point, that whole year led up to, there's elements of authority in our life that we either choose to acquiesce to, or we don't. And if we ignore those can also be good indicators of this is good and this is holy and this is blessed, or it's not. And so if Laz had said, I'm not comfortable with this, need to think about this, then I'm like, okay, that's an indicator of the Lord speaking through Laz and saying, this is not, sorry for the listener, Laz is my father-in-law. That's what we call him. His actual name is Ken or Kenneth. But if he had said, no, you don't have my blessing, it's like, okay, Jamie, I tried. That's it. Yeah. Right? It's actually interesting. Most people that I tell, even if they're not Catholic, like they really actually, they're like, wow, that's really thoughtful. That's really like you thought through this element of like, that's his daughter that you're trying. So even if cut out like the Christianity and our faith out of it, it was this man, that's like, he loves her and has loved her since the beginning. So for you to go to him, it was like, you're at some level, it's that quasi like distance between like actually asking for her hand and taking her, right? It was like, no, if I'm going to court her, you need to know I'm going to protect her. Again, I'm going to take care of her. I'm going to do my best to be who you are when I need to be that person around her when you can't.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Did that answer there?
Yeah. So he gave his blessing.
He did. Yeah, he was very, I think they knew, like we had been talking a lot. I had for sure been around the family. Again, that's another indicator. I think a lot of people get in marriages or start dating people, and it's like, dude, if you don't jive with the family, that should be a really clear indicator of, dude, this is not the person to marry. Because you're not just marrying that person, you're marrying her family. And so I'm not saying this all the time, but I'm saying most of the time, if you're not cool with the family, that's a battle that is going to be there the whole time in your life. So like, do you want that? Marriage is hard enough. Do you want the rest of that background in there? Right. Thankfully, like, again, she has an awesome family. I love her family. She loves my family. So again, another indicator of like, yeah, this makes sense. This would work. So,
yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, not to fast track the whole relationship or courtship part of it, but how and when did you propose?
February 17th.
Isn't that your birthday?
No, 19th.
Oh, shoot. Okay,
yeah.
2 days before.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, dude.
And actually, Jamie may correct me on this because I keep saying, no, I'm sorry. It was the 28th of February.
Oh.
Because I always say the 17th, and she's like, that's not right. So it was the 28th of February. And again, I had taken Amy and Laz out to dinner. And they had a pretty good indicator of why we were going out to dinner, but they didn't presume. Mm. And that's where Laz really did. Like, he really didn't lay the hammer down. Super respectful, kind about it, but he was just like, you have my full blessing. He's like, I know you love Jamie. He's like, I have no concern that you're ever not going to take care of her. But he's like, but I just need you to, like, I need you to get a degree. I need you to finish. He already knew that I was getting my degree. I was already going to school. Mm-hmm. But he's like, you guys are getting married young, and I just need you guys to be as responsible as you possibly can. That would just bring a lot of peace. And so it was at Casa Corona, right there off of Cedar and Herndon. Good little spot that we actually had a number of family functions. I should say I went to a number of family functions with her family there. So it's cool to just, have that conversation there. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I also think it's really important. So Seth and Christine, you mentioned them earlier. Mm-hmm. They were really important in terms of that year leading up to even just courting, where they actually held us accountable. So I just encourage, and we all have those people in our lives now, but I think it's really important to have people that actually are willing to step out of their comfort zone and be like, hey, they knew that we had made these commitments. We had shared this like in sidebar conversations, I with Seth, Jamie with Christine, and they actually took the initiative to say, hey, we know you guys have made this commitment, so you shouldn't be holding hands, right? Like, you shouldn't be doing it. Like, they were actually like, wow. It was badass. Yeah. Like, in terms of, and I can say this, in the moment, it was badass. Like, it wasn't like a, You know, like, no. They were just trying to make sure, like, hey, if you've made this commitment, like, stick with the commitment. It's important that you honor that. So, and that's with everything. Like, have people in your life that's a true friend. Those are people that care enough to be like, hey, I'm willing to not just pass on this, you know, and make you think you're okay. It's like, no, you need to know that if we know, that's also our responsibility to challenge that. So, anyways.
Yeah, definitely.
So
the Casa Corona was you meeting with her parents?
Yeah, so met with her parents, and then it took, I think it was like something like 2 weeks longer than normal. I had designed the ring. I had done all of it. I kind of knew what she wanted. We'd had some conversations, but we didn't do any sort of like, oh, that's the ring, right? Like, so I had designed it from the ground up with Ken at Diamond Gallery. I don't know if they're still there, but they used to be off of Champlain and Perrin. Really good outfit.
Oh, they are actually.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay. And really good dude.
I don't know if it's the same people, but
it probably is. It was family. I know his dad ran it before him. He took it over. Like, it's been family run for a while.
And how long were you guys into the relationship at this point? Even though you guys weren't together for that year, I think we could count it as part of the relationship.
We still count it, like, because like at some level you could like we weren't courting, right?
But it was part of your.
But it was part of our
journey.
So at this point, it was a year and a half. Because basically we started dating, so yeah, year and 9 months, year and a half.
Ooh, you move quick, Eli.
Well, but that's the thing. We had, and so this, I'm not trying to throw my mom under the bus, but like she's very much, and I actually appreciate this, and I'm going to do it with my own kids because I think it's important. It's like, okay, if you're courting someone, there's only one end game with courting. So quit messing around. Like either you're going to get married or you're not. So don't waste their time. Don't waste your time. Like, and there wasn't any rush on our part, but at the same time, we had spent that year getting to know each other. So the courting was all the romantic, right? Like it was the bringing the flowers, being able to hold hands, being able to kiss, being able to do the chaste things that you can romantically in a courtship. And experiencing that for the first time, right? Like really actually going, okay, we're no longer like friends. Now it's actually like all these feelings that we do have for each other that we've known have existed. We now can express to each other both physically and more importantly, vocally and by acts. So I'd say 6 months, 9 months, like it wasn't that long. And so I took that to heart. Again, it was helped by that year. It was like, okay, we've got this, but we've already really figured out the friendship part. Now it's figuring out, okay, are we for real or not? And again, all the way through the actual courtship, it was, listen, if you at any point are in prayer, in any part of this process are just like, this isn't it, then okay. And we need to be honest with that. Like that's part of this. I don't want to get 2, 5, 7 years into marriage and all of a sudden it's like, what did I sign up for? So
how long was the engagement for?
It's funny. I do think it was the summer, so it was about June, July that we started like actually courting, and then February. So no more than 9 months.
Nice.
Yeah, 8, 9 months of like courting, and then we're married, or I should say engaged. But the engagement was funny because we've always had issues with like trying to keep secrets from each other. Like I just can't. Like I have a really hard time like hiding stuff from her, which is a good quality, I feel like. But like
saves you a lot of.
Yeah, and she could not. She was like, she even confided in her mom, who I had told Amy, my mother-in-law. I had told her the ring's coming. Like, I'm going to propose. And so she's all distraught because she's like, when's this happening? And I'm trying to figure it out. But meanwhile, so at this point, we also both were really, so Rick, you jumped in on the like assistant youth minister. So I'm working as an assistant youth minister. I'm going to school full time. Talk about not seeing each other very much during like this time. She's going to school full time, doing her thing. So the times that we do have, it's like real small windows, and it's great. Like we're connecting, but it's also like it sucks because it's like this isn't how courtship should be. But at the same time, we also, again, like mission, like we knew we're courting. We're intended to be married. We got to do the work. We got to get school out of the way. We got to like do what's right long term. So again, we'd been doing adoration, maybe not as consistently before from the Holy Child as we were, but we were, and that was where I was going to propose. Was right outside the chapel. But because it was like elongating, it was creating all this freaking stupid pressure on me. And Jamie was thinking, dude, I think Eli's, like, she confided in Amy of like, I think Eli's out. I don't think he wants to like finish this, because it's really hard. Like I couldn't, I was trying to like hide stuff from her about like what I was doing, you know, in terms of getting the ring and figuring out what was going on with the ring. So finally, freaking get the ring. We come out from the chapel there, and funny story. She did not say yes forever. What? So I got down on one knee, and I'm out in front. This is broad daylight. It was like lunchtime or like early afternoon. And this little old lady comes out, and she's like, oh, you know, it's like she's seeing like what's going on, and I've proposed, and Jamie's totally just like she can't believe what's going on. And thankfully Amy hadn't broken, because Amy's notorious for breaking and just being like, okay, so here's what's going on.
Don't tell him I told you.
Don't tell him I told you.
That's my mom's famous line. Don't say I told you this. This didn't come from me.
But yeah, so that was a cool.
Well, how long is forever? What, just 5 minutes?
A number of minutes. I for sure not 5, but it was more than 2.
It felt like a...
Yeah, it felt like just under 5. But again, there's this knot in my stomach of, dude, I could get down on one knee and she'd be like, no.
Yeah.
You know, like this isn't the right time. Yeah. Especially with all the school stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a trust thing. It was more of like, okay, like, it's a full trust. It's like, okay, if you say no, what does that mean? But I gotta trust that you're gonna say yes, you know, like, because this is real to me, and everything was pointing towards this is our vocation. We're meant to be together. So
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
So not a very long engagement, and then the date comes where you guys just celebrated your anniversary. The 10th, right?
The 10th, yeah.
That's funny. So 16 years.
Friday.
Right? 16 years.
16 years.
So what are some highlights or lowlights about the engagement going into the wedding?
Engagement was a blur.
Yeah,
engagement was a blur because we got married that following January. So like just under a year engagement. Yeah. Again, we were both in school. We were both, I think one of the highlights, so we did a really good job of just staying chaste in our relationship. We were really good about not being one-on-one, you know, as much as we could, and not more out of not that we didn't trust each other. It was more just like, why? Like, what's the, and if we were, it would be in a public place. It wouldn't be in a, you know, like,
yeah.
Just avoiding the near occasion.
Yeah, thank you. That's a perfect way of putting it. And I felt, again, that like all of this stuff leading up, like we'd already just established these habits that just really lended to, okay, this isn't anything new. Like we're just doing the same thing. They're just maybe a little different bent on it. But I'd say again, we're going to school. It's just pell-mell. We're both working our tail ends off, and so at this point I'm 25 and she's 21, right? So we're going into 4-year difference. So when we got married, I'm 25, about to turn 26, and she's 21. So the only like real highlight for me, and I think she can testify to this, is I got in a really big head-on collision going home actually one night from her place during one of the few windows that we could hang out. I'd stayed especially late and totally fell asleep at the wheel.
Wow.
It was right there off of Shaw and Minnewawa. Yeah, and totally blew a light, and this lady was turning left as I fell asleep, and dude, thanks be to God, like walked away from the accident. I think it actually saved me that I'd fallen asleep, because I probably would have tensed up and done some pretty crazy stuff, and if I hadn't. That was the only time where I remember calling her during the engagement. That is, it was one of these situations where like she knew something was wrong right when she picked up the phone, because it was like we had our like normal communication habits, and it was like, this is super not like ordinary. And then she could hear my voice, and she could hear what was going on in the background, and so she actually woke her parents up. I forget what time it was, but she woke her parents up, and she's like, I'm gonna go. So at this point I had moved into the apartment a couple months ahead of when we were getting married, so this would have been like October, November. And so she came over to the apartment, and basically was just like holding me, because I was like shaking and like super distraught over like obviously a pretty serious accident. So I would say that was the highlight. But again, it was awesome, like looking back, because that was what we were going to be having like together, was like this, okay, we're no longer alone, like she was like, I need to go be with my beloved, and it was my
cool.
Betrothed. Like it was really cool, and I just remember being really thankful, like the next week of like, oh, this is what I get to look forward to, is this life not alone. And even though we're not one yet, like it was a glimpse into this is what it's like, and not in a sexual way, not in anything, but just like this two hearts that are one, right? That are knit together. Not at that point, but that would be that way. So
that's cool. I don't think I remember that. But
no, this was
that's interesting.
That's when I picked up that Subaru. Because that was the Impala, it was totaled. It hit like
the purple one,
the maroon one. Because she hit me on the driver's side. And it was I was going 40, 45, and she turned, and she had to be going 15, 20, coming. Like she had the right of way. It was green, and so that driver's side just boom, everything, airbags blew. I can still, anytime I talk about airbags, I can smell them.
Wow. So not long after that, you guys get married, and not to bypass that, I mean, if you have anything you want to share about the wedding or marriage, but then you kind of touched on it. You moved into the apartments. You ended up moving from the role of youth minister or assistant youth minister to you were managing the apartments, right? Is that what that was? So when you guys got married, that was your job.
So that's a good point. So the segue was that the youth ministry role wasn't going to pay what we needed, and this new job was perfect. Again, our whole life knowing each other, and especially marriage, it's just awesome seeing how God works, and specifically Saint Joseph, and how he just always answers, and in the weirdest, maybe not the best, and perfect, like with a bow on it, like perfectly wrapped, but it's exactly what we need. Right. And it's always been there. So this, again, a parishioner at Holy Spirit knew our situation, was intimately connected with us through the youth group, knew that like I needed a transition, needed better pay. Because we were going to be getting married, had a need for an apartment manager, but also she knew, and her husband knew, that I needed to finish school. So it was like this best of both worlds. They didn't need someone full-time in an office on site at the apartments because it was a smaller apartment complex. But they were willing to pay better, like substantially better than what the youth ministry gig was doing. And then it also, there was stuff going on at the youth ministry level, as well as the Holy Spirit worship wise, that was starting to go down, where it was like it was a God thing as well. Right. I looking back again, hindsight, I was attached to I was attached to the music at not a good level, and it would have had a negative impact on Jamie and I's marriage if this hadn't transpired the way it would have.
Because you guys were starting to do a lot of kind of bigger things.
We were.
A little bit.
Yeah, we were starting to do stuff outside the church, and that's really where the rub came. Was we were starting to do like worship events and getting asked to play at other conferences and at other churches for like their youth like retreats and things. And basically the way it transpired was, you guys as a band are tied to Holy Spirit, so you will only serve Holy Spirit. And basically, like, as a group, we were just like, no, that's not, that was never part of this. That's not how we envisioned this. Again, I wouldn't frame it in my, speaking just for myself, there wasn't an arrogance there. There wasn't a, like, we're better than this. It was just all of a sudden this was pulled out of left field and placed in front of us, literally like in documentation of you're going to sign this, otherwise there's the door. And it was like, no.
Well, how much are you paying me?
That's literally. And it's not even necessarily pay. It was just like, this was never like part of the conversation. Like this was going to go where the Lord wanted it to go, and now you guys are putting this in front of us as though you have a say. It's like,
that's an interesting thing when you're doing like ministry and stuff, because you kind of, a lot of times you there's a little bit of loyalty, I'd say, maybe just because someone is kind of helped you, got your head started, or that's who you're with. But then sometimes there becomes like this, almost like an ownership of their part of this, like, and I've had it where people have been like, oh, I know you guys kind of like, I don't want to step on toes. I'm like, I don't belong to them. Like, I do stuff with them, but it doesn't mean that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not on their payroll. So, that's interesting. So that was a segue out of that. How was the apartment gig? I mean, how long did you do that for?
So you shared some stuff with me and my wife. Well, you and your wife have shared some stuff with me and my wife about those years. I think that'd be a good thing to...
What did we share with you?
Just the way life was at the time. I like the pizza story.
What? Did you share it? I don't remember this.
It's your story.
I'm sorry, man.
You were something about writing checks for pizza or something. Like just the way life was, and growing through that together.
Well, you guys did that too? That was in my story.
You guys did that too. You're thinking Rick's.
That wasn't you? Oh, my bad. No, that was okay. I'm getting confused.
Rick did bring that up in his episode, though.
Fun times.
That was your story?
That was,
Oh, okay. My bad.
We were living in an 850 square foot apartment together, which was phenomenal. Like, as a couple, we were like, this is perfect. We found out we were pregnant with Brian. Let's see here. That was 2011. So it was basically just over a year after we had been married. And it was awesome, man. Like, it was awesome. It was beautiful in that now we were living under the same roof, still going to school. So we were still finishing up school. Jamie's such a stud. So she was pregnant, finishing her final year of college. She had to take finals in her like 7.5 month, 8 month of being pregnant. And mind you, she had picked a very hard, so the graphic design program at Fresno State at this point was one of the best in the country. they had a few professors that were, quite frankly, just complete a-holes, but they were really good, and that's why they were like so good, was that they just knew how to push people and get them to be the best that they could be. And she's a phenomenal artist. She's a phenomenal graphic designer. I still think she could knock the socks off most anyone in the industry right now. But that said, like, it was, in a nutshell, it was awesome, because we were living very simply. My work was literally like on the property, so I didn't have to like commute anywhere, didn't have to do anything. In fairness, I don't know if I was the best fit for the role, to really be frank. I think at that point I hadn't really gotten my sea legs on how to like sell yet. And that's very much a sales role, like being an apartment manager. That's really a lot of it. I think I was really good at managing people because of the apartment complex. It for sure gave me a sneak peek into the whole world of Section 8 housing, and I'll just leave that there. Some of it's great, like it really has its place, and I'm not gonna knock, there's a need for it. Most of it's not good. Yeah. I'll just leave it at that.
Most government assistance.
Yeah, the one story I have is there were people in this apartment complex that were proud that they were like sons or great grandsons of people living on Section 8. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of like, wait, what? Like that's not what the program's for. No. The program's to get you back into like the workforce and like back on your feet and like living, not like a legacy thing.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
So you did that for
I want to say it's till 2000. Well, no, that's where In and Out would come in.
Yeah. But I was just thinking, you did that for like a year or two, maybe?
No, it would have been 3 or 4.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it had to be at least 2 and no more than 4.
Yeah.
Because the apartments would have been 2009, 2010.
Okay.
And then In and Out would have been 2014.
Yeah. And then just going back to it was
No,
it was 2012.
Yeah,
it was
so
like
it was 2 years.
2012.
So you're right. Between 2 and 3 years, apartment complex.
Yeah, again, going back to you and I rolling in the same circles, and unintentionally. And I don't even remember how it happened. Like, you probably just hit me up saying, "Hey, like, are you guys hiring?" Mm-hmm. And I mean, I wasn't a manager yet, but I was able to get you in.
I sincerely don't remember, and I apologize, Rick.
No, I don't either.
But again, it was a blessing. Like, it was one of those things where it was. I knew, like, the couple, they're awesome, that own a number of apartment complexes. They were such a blessing to us. I can't say anything. Again, I just wasn't a good fit for them.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm not gonna paint them in any bad light. They gave me such a good shot. They gave me such a good rope, and I think what you mentioned off mic, Manny, it's like I was kind of like, okay, when's the time to bail, and when's the time to like what is this?
Yeah.
So I think it lined up perfectly. Like, it was like I needed to look. I knew I needed to really be honest and transition.
Yeah.
But at this point, there was also the issue of I already had my degree, so I had to really kind of weigh out what was going on, and I knew from a couple of buddies from college that had gotten through, and so this is 2008, post 2008 crash.
Yeah.
Like, economic, like one of the worst times in U.S. history, and I'm like completely oblivious to it, but at the same time, I'm seeing buddies getting their pink slips that just came out of the teaching program at Fresno State after 6 months, a year. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go into education right now. That doesn't look fun. That's not stable. That's not good for a family. That's not good for a marriage.
So so you did end up getting your degree? I don't know if I knew that. What's it in?
It's in, so my focus was creative writing. It is. I'm by trade, I'm a creative writer. But I knew that creative writing, like, you at least needed to get your Master of Fine Arts. So I had basically went the teaching route so that I could get out and basically teach at the high school level.
Yeah.
Obviously with, credentials and all that.
Yeah.
But I was like, I saw the pink slip stuff and I was like, I'm not going to go the credential route, not going to waste the time. I'm going to go do something completely outside of what I went to school for.
So you got hired at In-N-Out Burger.
So I got hired at In-N-Out Burger. Yeah. But I figured this was the beauty, was that I had a degree. So I could leverage that into, okay, if I want to get into management, if I want to do other things, it's like, listen, I'm not, I have this background, utilize this, point me in the right direction, and I'll work to get to where, you guys are getting the best out of me and I'm getting paid for what you're getting out of me. So,
yeah, for sure. And you were there for a couple years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, to your point, 2011, 2012, it was at least a couple years. Got hired at the one right there off of Ashland and Blackstone.
Yeah.
And you and I
we worked a couple years together.
We worked a couple years together.
Because I left in like February-ish of 2014. You were still there.
Yep.
I think you probably stayed till either later that year, 2015. It was
February, so I got hired on it, and now what I'm doing now, and it's crazy to say this out loud, 11 years. So it was 2014, so this is why I get screwed up, it was the 17th of February, 2014.
Gotcha.
And I got hired on with this gig.
Ain't that your birthday? No, I'm just kidding.
Now I feel like deja vu.
I know. I was purposely trying to mess with you there. So how'd you get into what you're doing now? Who was the hookup there? So you were working at In-N-Out.
Yeah.
And the plan was to go into management.
Plan was to go into management. I was...
You've mentioned this before on the podcast.
Have I?
Yeah, something about fast tracking didn't work out.
Yeah, I was told that I was getting fast tracked. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Totally got piped, and it was like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden it was like, that's not happening, And it was like, okay, well, I have my degree. So I'm going to go find somewhere that's going to honor the degree. At this point, so what's going on family-wise, this is why motivation is important. The move from the apartments, so we had Ryan, and then we had Declan right behind Ryan. Ryan and Declan are 16, 18 months apart.
Wow.
And we had both of them at the apartment. Yeah. Which in 850 square feet apartment, that's small. Thankfully, so this is where your community really plays a part. Thankfully, Jamie's grandma, Darling, at that point had a guest house, and she was like, come live there, just do things around the house, help me around the house. She wasn't even asking for rent, which was insane. But she wanted, and we did pay her not what the house was worth at all, but out of just this it keeps us honest, and we need to be paid for the fact that you're taking care of us. And then I would do super odd jobs around the house. Anyways, so at this point we had moved there right during the transition to In-N-Out.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that. Yeah.
So that, because I knew that the pay was going to be better, and I knew long term the strategy was get into management or go the corporate track, and it's going to take care of our family long term. Essentially, just do the time, put in the work, do the time, right? Then, so then we figure out, or then we conceive Liam, and Jamie's pregnant, and it's like, okay, I can't continue to work an hourly job. I have a degree. And then that's when all of that went down management-wise of hey, we told you were fast-tracked. Then it was okay, I need to figure out something that's actually salary that's consistent for my family. One of Jamie's, so at this point, Jamie and I are working. Both of us are working, and she's working for Greg Isley. Great guy, old family friend to her parents, and he basically knows Chris, one of my mentors at work. Okay. And Chris at this point was doing really well at work, to the point where he needed a project manager, like a support person, because he's growing at such a rate that he needs someone to be able to like really manage back end stuff. It's in packaging. I'm not going to bore you guys or the listener in it, but it is fun. It's a hard industry. You have to have freaking spine like no other, and it's for sure sales, which is not easy, despite what many people think. And so anyways, I start going into the interview process with this, knowing that I have a pretty warm handoff from, Isley. And so I meet with Chris first. Don't know him from Adam. A really solid Christian guy. And then basically the way I joke, what I've told people for many years is I would argue I ended up doing like between 6 and 8 interviews to get the job.
Holy crap. Wow.
It was like basically like getting into Congress. Like that's what I joke about. It's like, dude, it was like I had to meet with so many people, and everyone had different roles, and it was just random. Anyways, so finally, there was at one point, I think after the first or second interview, I actually thought, okay, I don't have this job. Like just the way, and I still remember Brett Pearson. He's great, such a good leader, but I didn't handle the interview well. And he was just like, you know what, man, you're not a good fit for this job. He's like, we don't need you to get out. He was just straight up. So I went home, tail tucked between my knees, and talking to Jamie about it. And she's like, you know what? We're going to write him an email. Again, so this goes back to like when you have a marriage, like when you have people in your corner. She's like, we're not going to take no for an answer. Let's write an email. Let's shoot him an email. And like she totally, like we talked it out. Like we figured out, okay, this is the strategy. We're gonna, this is the work I'm gonna put in. Like I started basically selling him. I was like, this is what I'll do. I want this job so bad. This is what I'll do. And I started laying out, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna figure out how to be a better salesman. So I just started researching like online, like, okay, sales books, sales strategy, all this stuff. And it was enough for him to meet me at Pismo's. He fired back like the next day or 2 days later. He was like, okay, meet me at Pismo's at, whatever. And that started the next like 4 interviews. And he admitted it at the end. He was like, Eli, he was like, your interview actually went fine. He was like, I just wanted to see if you had the ability to take no. And it was badass. It was like, okay. Like, so, anyways, got the job, started out as like basically a project manager. So managing a bunch of different balls in the air, a bunch of different projects, a bunch of different customers, running all over the valley for 2 years. And then the idea was always that it was kind of this like runway into like taking on your own territory and moving into your own like role. So it reached a point like in our partnership where it was like, okay, I'm ready. And then there was a little bit of kind of from management, like, no, he's not ready. And then I think ultimately Chris was like, no, like this guy's kick ass. Like you guys need to give him a shot. Yeah. So, and again, that's more a testament to Chris, because Chris really took me under his wing and like really showed me how to sell really well. Yeah. And like a lot of the strategy and honestly, more than anything, just how to treat people. Yeah. And that's really what it, what it came down to. It's not manipulation, unlike what people think. Yeah. It's literally like, it's the golden rule. Just treat people the way you want to be treated and you'll sell. Yeah. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, obviously that's what you're doing now. So we'd like to say, okay, well, that's, the kind of, set the stage and everything's been great since, but we'll take a little break.
Hello, friends. I want to tell you a little bit about our First Fruits movement. What we do first in everything matters. It sets the trajectory of whatever action we take. In Leviticus, God tells Moses to share with the Israelites that they must bring forth the first fruits of their livestock, of their produce, and of their drink. The fulfillment of this is found in Jesus himself. He is the firstborn of the Father. He is the first man to conquer death. He is the first to ascend into heaven. Before Jesus' ministry, he would run to Mary for guidance and counsel. So why would I not do the same? What can you do to participate? Commit to praying the rosary daily, invite other men and women to join you, and share the movement with your friends on social media and other communication platforms. What can you do to support us here at Circa Ignem and First Fruits? First, pray for us and our mission daily, and second, buy our hats and future merch at circaignem.com. That's CIRCAIGNEM.com. Thank you.
Another log on the fire.
That promo was brought to you by Circa Ignem Inc. Buy our hats and our stickers.
What's your rosary company name, Nick?
Drop a plug.
Arma Sancta, Latin for holy weapon.
There we go.
Yeah, I still get it mixed up because I almost named it Sanctus Arma, but then I realized that's not like the proper. John Girardi helped me out. Yeah, I make paracord rosaries, and I used to make the glass bead chain link ones, but then I realized men don't really buy those, and my whole point in making rosaries, like I shared on my episode like a year ago, was like I'm trying to get more men to pray the rosary, and so it's been good. It's been really good. So yeah,
Go buy a rosary.
yeah.
You can find them on Instagram.
No, not yet. Actually, I haven't done any of that. Yeah,
I thought you were on there.
No, I haven't been on Instagram.
Damn it, Rick.
So honestly, I just I sell so much at the retreats that we do that I purposely haven't tried to do online because
What he's really trying to say is he doesn't need Instagram.
I do it the old way.
I pay some people who pay some people.
Yeah.
Everybody loves my rosary.
Everybody loves my rosary.
Some say the old way is not right, but that's okay. That's all right. Anyways, but yeah, I just can't keep up with I don't feel like I'd have enough to keep up with the demand if I did like online and retreats yet. So that's kind of where I'm at. But anyways, back to the Elijah Spencer experience. Back to the story here. So as I kind of just left this on a cliffhanger of saying like one would say, oh, okay, like everything's been great since then because you're still in the same career, but one of the biggest hurdles or roadblocks, and I mean, I don't know how long into it you'll share right now, but I think one of the biggest, probably scariest experiences in your life that came, what year would it have been? 2015?
2018.
Was it 18?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe it wasn't that
6
long
years ago.
And you've talked about it on the show before, but your heart attack.
Yeah.
So you'd been there for a while.
Yeah.
When that happened.
I wouldn't consider myself an unhealthy person by any stretch of the imagination, even from 2014, post in and out. I wasn't working out, like a crazy man, but I was working out. Mm-hmm. And then even more so with the job, because it was super consistent. It was, Monday through Friday, weekends off. Like, it was, I wouldn't say I was like as disciplined as I am now, but I for sure was getting at least a couple days in a week of some sort of exercise. Mm-hmm. Friday, September 21st of 2018. It was a particularly hot summer. And this is part of the shameful side of the story. We had knocked off as a team early. Chris, the one I mentioned, has a boat. Mm-hmm. And so we said, hey, let's hit up Millerton. Let's go, have a good time for a couple hours and then, head home from there. Mm-hmm. At this point, I had transitioned into my own sales role. Have been consistently doing well in it, and felt fine. Got a little dizzy on the boat, but thought that was I was doing like backflips off the boat into the water. And, I think Chris had bought a pizza or a couple pizzas. Mm-hmm. Again, nothing crazy, just having a good time. Had maybe a couple Coors Lights. Again, normal, right? Like nothing out of the ordinary or crazy. As I'm driving home, even though it's hot, because in California in the Central Valley, September is still technically summer, even though the 21st would be like the fall solstice or whatever. It's still freaking 100 some odd degrees outside. And so I'm thinking, we'd all met up at Chris's house. We got back with the boat to his place. When we're driving back, I'm like, man, I'm hot. Don't feel weird. Don't feel any, just feel, okay, it's just warm. Get in the car, crank the AC as I'm headed back home, and realize, man, this AC isn't really working. And my left arm, is starting to have, some pressure and some weirdness, down to the elbow. And it was that was the indicator, and I don't remember when or how I learned that, but I knew right away. I was like, this isn't good. The arm thing isn't, that's a really big indicator. And the fact that I kept driving is still dumb to this day, but I was close enough to home where I was like, okay, just got to get home and we'll figure it out from there. So I get home and I walk in, and it was early enough in the afternoon. I want to say it was 3:34, maybe 4:30. But again, it's summertime, still a ton of daylight. I walk in, I look at Jamie, and I'm like, hey, we need to chat, because the kids were all around. I didn't want to scare them.
Right.
Pull her into, I think it was our room, and I'm just like, hey, something's going down. We need to get to the hospital. I don't know what's happening, but I'm not good. And for those that know me, I do not like hospitals, and I don't like doctors. And not because of any tinfoil or anything like that. I just don't like them. I don't, I prefer to go the natural route of let's just let our bodies take care of themselves. So the fact that I was telling Jamie, hey, we need better, higher level care than what I have, she knew right away. So she's like, okay, well, let's get in the van and we'll go. She called, I forget who she called in the process, but she called either her parents or her brother, and she might have worked down that cascade. But essentially knew that she wanted to stay with me when we got to, we headed to St. Agnes, because at that point we were living in a house that was literally 5 minutes away from St. Agnes. Yeah. So the quick shot, we get there, Mike, her brother Mike, meets us there, and sure enough, walk in, and they do a quick battery of diagnostic tests, and as I'm going through each question, I can see and look at there's 3 people that were kind of behind the counter. I can see quickly as we're working down the thing, they're all kind of doing the looking at each other, and then they're doing the body check. They're seeing all the body stuff, and they're like, okay, this is classic. Yeah. So someone comes out right away. Mind you, this was I don't know why a Friday afternoon would be. Maybe someone in the health industry can attest to this, but it was pretty packed in there, and they literally moved me up to the front. It wasn't hey, go sit, you know, and we'll retest you in an hour. It was after, I think, the first half or 3/4 of the questions, it was some chick came out with a thing, sit down, boom, rolled me right through into the front. They threw on the EKG and right behind the doors, and then that's when both the nurses, Jamie's looking at their faces, they look at each other, some sort of assistance, and it's you can see I'm just going, go. So they pull me into a pre-op room. They're telling me to strip. They're giving me what's it called, glycerin, the stuff to help with heart stuff, real fast, similar to baby aspirin. A lot of guys, old school guys, will carry it in their wallet as a little they start feeling any sort of AFib or stuff, they'll just put it behind their lip to then get to the hospital. Anyways, so I'm joking, I'm trying to manage the stress level, because I can tell the room, there's at this point the pre-op room, I didn't know it was called a pre-op room, this is post stuff, I'm calling it because I know that now. There's at least 8 people in this room, so I knew right away, I was like, okay, this is not good. Right, this many people, there's a problem. And Jamie's in the room, And they're telling me to strip. They're telling me, okay, you need to take your ring off. Like, you need to do, like, all this stuff that I'm like, whoa. So then Jamie's in for a minute, and I don't remember this, but they had to move her out because the pre-op, they're having to, like, ask me certain questions to make sure I'm not, which is weird that she couldn't be in the room. But anyways, so they're asking me questions. They had moved her out. No one's talking to her, right? They move her out, and basically Jamie's like, I just need to know, is he having a heart attack? No one's told me, is he having a heart attack? He thinks he's having a heart attack. She's like, I've had friends that have had panic attacks that feel like heart attacks. Like, and the nurse is like, I'm so sorry. Someone should have said this. She's like, yes, he's having a heart attack. It's absolutely like 100%. Like, we're not even concerned at this point. She's not concerned. She's going, like, that's there's no other option than a heart attack. At this point, we're prepping him for surgery because we don't want him to die. You know, the liability at that point fell on the hospital because we were there. So they don't even, that's it. Like, there's no, like, high five, hey, I'll see you on the other side. Like, with Jamie, it's literally, she's like, hey, like, you need to go here. Is there anyone else you can call? Because we're rolling him in right now. So they take me, and that's basically all I remember, because they drugged me up with a bunch of stuff. Didn't realize it, but when they're, like, picking me and doing a bunch of stuff in that room, they were doing all the pre-op stuff, and part of it was getting me ready for operation. So as I'm rolling there, I'm starting to fade out, and I'm not really aware.
Yeah.
So I go into the room. They went through my right femoral artery, which, for those that have experienced it or those that haven't, it sucks because it's a big artery, and it's right in your freaking crotch. So it's not like it's not a great spot. Didn't have no stents. They ballooned a couple spots in the heart. I am aware of what's going on. I remember seeing a screen to my left as they're operating. Couldn't feel a thing. I still am joking kind of with, like, the nurse at my head. And basically the nurse at my head, I think it was a dude, is just making sure and checking vitals to make sure I'm not like bleeding out or flatlining.
Yeah.
Which I think was kind of funny to him, because I don't think normally patients just pass out with this stuff, and I know I have a pretty high tolerance, especially with dental stuff, on, like, pain meds. So I think they were kind of cracking up that I was still, like, even aware. But I remember Plenty's, who was he's since passed, God rest his soul, was my operating cardiologist. I could hear him calling, like, certain stuff and what they were doing. And then he could tell that I was still, like, somewhat, like, engaged with him. So he's like, what the fuck, like, is going on? But then he had this huge screen. So that was the weird part, was that he had this huge, like, operating screen. And he's using that to kind of look at imaging and do what he needed to do. And then that's when it faded. I remember waking up fast. That was a fast. Apparently the operation wasn't longer than, like, 30, 45 minutes. But the post is what's the worst, because the femoral artery is so sensitive that they have to keep moving you, or sorry, you can't move. You have to stay on your back, and part of the not moving is that you have to every once in a while make sure that you don't clot out or die from a clot. They have to keep, like, massaging right here, and I got this nurse that, man, she was not shy. I'll just put it that way. And she was working me, like, and it hurt a lot. I remember waking up, and my dad was there, and he had brought Father Borges in. And so I received last rites, and I think the hardest part was really reflecting on, my family asked, obviously later. I really actually, like, that whole process, I wasn't actually very, as weird as this sounds, I wasn't really scared for myself, even though I was not ready to go meet the Lord.
Yeah.
I was really, really scared for my kids at this point.
Right.
I was terrified. all I could think about, and a lot of the joking, and it was a defense mechanism, to be honest, of like trying to be at least somewhat in control, which I knew I wasn't. But all of my fear was that Jamie wouldn't have me, and that my kids wouldn't know a father.
Yeah.
And that they would have to grow up with this hole that I knew they were going to try and fill with anything and everything that only really I or God the Father could fill. So thankfully I survived. It was, I just remember waking up and that all the masks disappeared when my dad walked in. I think we can all relate in some way to either our mother or father. Like, it was just like, okay, I can't be this strong person in front of you. Like, you know who I am. And then Jamie was right behind him. They would only allow, I forget how many people. So it was my dad and Father Borges came in first, and then it was quick. They moved out, and then Jamie came in, and we had our moment. And then it was recovery from there. It was so it's, in a nutshell, I don't want to drag it out. In a nutshell, it's genetics. It's on both sides of the family. So there's not really much I can do other than basically really like nutritionally eating healthy, and then like working out and just staying fit as best I can, and not basically being moderate in everything, both nutrition, drinking, and working out. So it was a hard recovery, because I think the frustrating part for me was I didn't see myself as like unhealthy. I didn't see myself as, having too many problems in lifestyle. And so hit with that, and then brought out like the initial like 6 weeks brought out a lot of like attachment to certain things. I didn't realize how attached I was to salt. It took me completely off of salt. I couldn't have very much caffeine, and so Jamie took the brunt of a lot of like pretty deep-seated anger at that point. A lot of like lashing out. Thankfully, she is who she is, and she knew kind of what was going on, and so it just kind of leveled out from there. Kids are studs. Kids, I think the older ones knew like kind of what was going on at that point. The younger ones, no clue. They just thought that like Dad was like on vacation at home, just hanging out in his bed for a long time.
How long were you off?
6 weeks.
Wow.
So it happened in September, and then I was back at work by, so obviously late September. I think it was like the second or third week of November. Is when I was back at work. And even then, I was on like a modified schedule. And thankfully, like, so you guys know Ryan Whitaker. He's been just a stud. So he took over like all of my book of business. Like, my boss like really stepped in and was like, hey, nothing, like as far as like upper management, nothing happened. Like, just take care of yourself, Eli. We'll handle your customer base. We'll make sure everyone's taken care of. So it really, like, it's pretty awesome how that event really is the catalyst for where we're at today. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to keep talking. I feel like I've been talking a lot. But
well, it is your episode. So. But I think that, man, it's crazy, like, hearing you talk about that. Like, Manny, you probably feel the same way, but I know for me, like, when I think about death, like, I'm not that scared of it, like, for myself. Of course, like, I want to make sure my soul is right. That's like my very first thought when like I think about something. It's just like, okay, do I need to get to confession? But then after that, it's like I'm not really that afraid to die. It's more of like, I don't want my kids to grow up without a father. I don't want the thought of my wife alone, and even selfishly, I don't like the thought of her finding someone else, to be completely honest with you. But like, that's always my number one thought, is like my kids. You know what I mean? Like kids that grow up without a father just generally don't get into good things, because like you said, they try to fill that hole with something else, you know. And yeah, for sure. I think that's
I think the points from there for me are, I went on a pretty serious health, meaning exercise. So I started when I was cleared to do any sort of exercise, because there was a number of weeks where I wasn't cleared to do anything for obvious reasons. The longest I could walk when I was cleared was like less than an eighth of a mile, and it was so slow, and yet it was also it was so slow, and it was so hard to do. And there was a part of me that was like, do I even want to try, right? Like, so there's all the mental gymnastics of like, do I just quit? You know, like, is this it? Like, do I just throw the towel in? And that quickly was like, no, you're at this point. So 2018 would put me 35. I'm like, this is not the age. You're going, okay, I could basically get disability for the rest of my life. And again, I'm looking at my kids going, that's not, I don't want them growing up with a dad that, you know. So I started like just pushing the walking. That's what I could start with, was just walking. Didn't even do weights, didn't do anything. It was just like, I'm gonna walk. And started early in the morning, right? Like, woke up early in the morning and would get as much as I could get done in an hour. And started with, like I mentioned, the eighth of a mile, which wasn't an hour, but that was as strenuous as I could get, and then built and built and built and stacked to where I could consistently do, 3 or 4 miles in a given hour. And
that's because you were limited to that, or was it like literally like all you could do was 1/8? All I could do. You were like winded. I was winded, and like you can ask Jamie, like it was the old man shuffle. Wow. Like it was like moving, and then I'd get to that point, and then it would just be like, okay, I got to go back. Like I can't. Like this is too hard. And then that was again the mental part of jumping to where she's not with me in the morning, right? Like doing these walks and really having to push through and be like, okay, can you? Should you? Right? So then like building into that, which built into that fine. And then let's see here. That's when talked with let's see here. Well, jumping ahead, that like so 2018 up to like 2020 was like a journey of like nutrition and like working out and trying to figure out like how to manage through the mental and spiritual and emotional, all of that on this.
How old was your youngest at this point?
So 2018 we would have had Bridget. Yeah, Bridget was 4. No, sorry, Bridget was 2. Yeah, because she's 2016. Yeah. So Bridget was 2. And then, is that right? Yeah. So she would have been 2. And yeah, because Liam would have been like 4 or 5 when this happened. So we're still at the house, the original house right off of like Herndon and Monroe, and we find out at this point that we're pregnant with, or Jamie's pregnant with Bear, and so it's like we've outgrown this house. And meanwhile, we know what happened in 2020. COVID, all that kicks off, and so it's like the work situation, and it really, again, it's as much as it sucked globally what was going on, it also was like helpful in terms of like, okay, we need to find a place to live. Not the best time, because like all the regulations and stupid bullcrap that was going on in terms of home like stuff, but anyways, we're looking, totally lines up. St. Joseph, just a freaking rock star. We get this house that we're in currently. And, but in that process, I'm talking with my brother Nathan, and he introduces me to jiu-jitsu. And that really, like, I think I sent that, I posted that quote on my storyboard like yesterday or day before, like, Ignatius of Loyola. It really struck me because it's been a testament since, like, really doing jiu-jitsu seriously, is like the way that we physically train ourselves can become a prayer and should become a prayer. And I didn't know it at the time, but like the art of jiu-jitsu really like forces discipline in every part of your life, and it's very Catholic in nature, although others may take argument at that. But like the whole like way that it's structured, it's totally Catholic. And so to me, didn't know this going into it, but like just was like, hey Nathan, this seems cool. I did wrestling. Let's try this out. And I swear it really pushed me into, oh well, if I'm going to be serious about training physically, why am I not training spiritually? Right? Why am I not practicing my faith with the discipline that I'm willing to commit to something like this? So it really just dovetailed into, again, what we're doing now. Like, jiu-jitsu really got me into, okay, am I reading, consistently? Am I, like, discussing my faith with my kids and my family? Am I praying consistently? And again, just discipline in all areas and facets of my life. And then it brought us into this beautiful community. We have Father Michael, who was like challenging me during this whole process, and then boom, all of a sudden it's like this, right? The podcast all of a sudden comes out of like this, everything, or not everything, but most things are firing on all cylinders, and then it's like, okay, what are you going to do? You need to put energy and effort towards what you care about, and like back in, like the whole point is we're meant to be sacrificial. And so I guess that puts us pretty darn close to current time. I'll field it back to you guys.
There's one more baby there though.
Yeah, so Bear was born while we were at the Paul house. He was 6 months old when we moved here, and then Sumner is now he'll be 3 coming up here in February 14th. So he was, let's see here, 22. Yeah, 2022 is when Jamie found out Jamie was pregnant in 2022. So yeah, and by the time this episode drops, baby number 7 is on the way. Dead serious.
Well, really?
Yeah.
Did you know this, Rick?
I did.
So this is me being surprised right now. No way.
I told him my lips were sealed.
Yeah, but this will
like,
drop for
like
a
not
couple
even,
weeks.
Your kids don't even know yet, right?
Yeah, kids don't know. So
nobody knows.
Like, so my sister's is totally on air. My sister's wedding is coming up this weekend, and we're trying to respect the fact that like we don't want to steal not wedding, her wedding shower is coming up, bridal shower, whatever it is. And so yeah,
I'm still in shock here. I mean, I shouldn't be in shock, but I didn't think you would tell me this way.
You shouldn't be in shock.
Well, congratulations.
This is coming out.
This is beautiful.
Like 6 weeks, so at this point,
but not for me right now. It's happening for me.
You should be trying to catch up, man. You should be trying to.
I'll reserve my comments for that.
Leave you behind in the desk. Your kid's petition was hilarious. So his kids made a petition.
I'll send you.
They don't know, but they totally know. And it was funny because I saw a picture of it, and they're like they have the pros and cons. And the pros was like, we'll beat out the Valdezes and the Palacios, but we'll be gracious winners. Then we'll catch up to the McDonald's, and who was the other? I don't remember who the other family.
My sister. I think Michaela.
Is that who it was? Yeah.
That's funny.
I'll find it and read it to you. The first one I had to call Ryan out because I'm like, that's circular. You can't. That's terrible logic right there. But I'll let it slide because the work is there. Let me pull this up real fast. Here we go.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Well, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna
it's
read it to
amazing.
you. Thank you. It will bring our family more joy. So this is on the first bullet on the pro side. By making us happy to have another baby and making you happy, therefore making us happier, and then making you happy by being happy, and there goes the circle of happiness. I'm like, you even use circle in a circular logic
That's
argument.
hilarious. What was this for?
For us to have another baby.
The kids made a petition.
The kids made a petition for us to have another baby.
That's hilarious. That is
And then they
hilarious.
have no idea that
They have no
Yeah.
idea. Jamie and I were dying laughing because they had no clue.
Yeah.
But
That's
we're sitting
funny.
there like we're like, yeah, we already know that Jamie's pregnant. Like,
That's so funny.
shut your damn mouth.
Yeah.
I'm still in shock. Not that you guys are having a baby, but the way you told me, the way I'm finding out.
I figured.
Season 2,
Yeah,
full
season
of
2,
crazy
full of craziness. The world will know.
reveals.
Tune into every episode in season 2 because you don't know what's going to happen.
This is going to be a part of the trailer.
It's a roller coaster.
That's funny. I had the thought like earlier tonight.
Oh, it's gonna happen.
Because I didn't know if you knew, right? And I was like, how cool would it be to like drop the end? But I was like, nah, he's not gonna do it. And then he did it.
No, I knew because I was like, we just have to get past Saturday, and I was like, there's no way this thing's dropping before Saturday, much less in the next month.
Well, he said it, and I looked right at you, Rick, and
I love the
you didn't do
book.
nothing.
You looked at me, and I was like, I was wondering if you were like, you knew, but you didn't know that I knew. So you know what I mean?
No.
the whole
funny.
I know gay, he gay.
Yeah, I know. So I was thinking more of that Friends episode, like, but they don't know that we know that they know that we know. Anyway,
That's a little more applicable.
good times, man. Congratulations.
Very much
Of
congratulations.
living out our faith.
Yeah, shoot, welcoming your 7th kid at you're turning what, 42?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's
42.
It's that
Sorry,
Catholic.
2025, 42.
That's
Yes.
that Catholic faith, man. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So I forgot I had a good like kind of ending spiel, but that might have been the ending spiel right there. Just blowing
Can't top that.
Manny's mind.
It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What is happening?
I'm still processing.
Well,
here.
what I was gonna do is kind of throw it back to early season 1. I feel like you haven't asked this question, but it was a question you'd ask a lot of people early on. And you kind of just answered it, I guess, but you can answer it more. But what's on the horizon? Obviously, baby number 7. But more specifically, I mean, I guess not more specifically, more personally for you. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things going on, but what's on
Lots
the
of
horizon?
irons in the fire. I think for sure, if we're talking temporal stuff, music is very much like forefront and center in my brain right now, and trying to respond to that. I feel like it's an awesome gift that I think I've squandered for quite a while, long enough, and I'm taking it by both horns. In that, I will say there's also just I'm very much looking forward to just the providence of God, and really being in an obedience, like a bold obedience to the Lord. And that's scary. It's really scary. Like what we just talked about. It's like that's bold obedience. It's like, okay, Lord, I don't like. We're gonna have to buy another van.
Oh yeah, you're at that number.
There's all kinds of things, and it's like you're the one that's in control. and we've responded, and now we need to continue to respond. Not that it's okay, cool, we've done our part. But there's a lot more trust in His providence, and a lot less anxiety than I would say prior to any others, which is awesome. That's a good soul state to be in, and Jamie and I are on the same page on that, which is beautiful. But then I think that there's just that there's a scariness too of back to the music thing. It's I don't know what you want to do with this, but I'm gonna put 100% at it, and again be bold in it. And if it crashes and burns, okay, it's okay, whatever. But I know that I've given it, I think there's part of that for me is I haven't given it 100% and for a long time, and with the intent of it being a profession and something that I do to make a living. And so I'm really excited to see what God has to do in that. I think my encouragement to the listener is just that I can attest to so many hidden miracles throughout my life, and I think it's not these are the Lord loves us so much, and I think especially for me, I've too long bought into the lie of Satan that I have to do things in order for Him to love me, and I have to produce things in order for Him to love me, and I have to be a certain way for Him to love me. And yes, we need to go to confession, and yes, we need to receive Him in the Eucharist, and yes, we need to participate in the church. But that's not contingent on making Him love us anymore, because He already loves us so much. More than we could ever possibly understand. And I think for too long I haven't really understood that. And so that's, I guess, my encouragement is that trust that the Lord loves you. And in that there will be a peace that you can really step out in faith and do crazy things. Often really scratching your head like this, going, I don't know what this is, I don't know what you want to do with it, but I trust that if I just keep saying yes, that you'll show up and that you'll do the rest.
So we started recording season 2 almost to the day, a year after you started this podcast.
Yeah.
Now you've done your story. You've been sat in the hot seat. You want to give us a recap of what Circa Ignem has been for you?
Oof.
I mean, you've talked to a good amount of people.
Yeah.
And now you get to share
you guys
yours.
Have too. Don't
we were here for it. For some of them.
It is, I think I've said this on a number of episodes, it is very humbling to be on this show, because there have been a lot of amazing people. Everyone that's been on this show has been amazing. And it's not because it's really the vehicle that this started with, which is we all have a story to tell. It's like what I'm doing right now, and we diminish it, and by doing that, we also diminish Christ. We diminish His power and His authority over us, and we diminish His church, right? We diminish His church militant in that. And this past year has been just a beautiful reflection of that we need to own that as a church. We need to own that as a community, right? And I can only speak for our micro community here at OLPH Clovis, California. Please come. If you don't feel like you're part of a community, you're more than welcome to come join ours. But these have to exist everywhere else. That's how that's how we leaven the world, right? It's not this radical mountaintop thing. It's that we put the work in at our community, and we sacrifice and we offer ourselves as an offering to the Lord at Mass every time we go. And in that, he takes all the stuff that he's already given us, because we don't really give him anything all we can offer back is what he's already given us and what he's created us in and through and with. And so in that's like, this whole year has been just a awesome, beautiful expression of that. The league is I would say a product of this, right? Is that fair to say, Rick?
Yeah, it's all just, I feel like it's all just a product of just
community,
everything.
Yeah.
It all just runs together for me, of like, there's just so many things. Like, I think that all these things within our community that are happening are all just a product of people saying yes. People that feel unworthy saying yes. Because I know you had this battle starting this thing, and I had the same battle with St. Raphael, with the League of St. Raphael. It was like, who am I? You know what I mean? Like, who am I to do this? But okay, like, clearly there's a desire or a want for it that people are expressing, so let's do it.
And that's what I mean. Like it's like I wasn't trying to say that to your point, it's when a community is invested in being and responding to the Lord's mission. It's not like this isn't, I've mentioned this a ton of times. I really could care less about doing this, but it's so hard on my heart all the time in prayer, right? Like in terms of like a ministry and a mission that just our community needs. If it expands outward, so be it. But just our community, right? Whether it's OLPH, whether it's Fresno County, whether it's the Valley. Okay, but the people need to know, like, you may feel like you have an ordinary life, but the reality is that everyone has ordinary lives that have radical things that happen in them if we're following God. And if we all talk about them, then it means that we're building up brick by brick what he wants in his church. And when we don't talk about them, then it means that Satan's doing exactly what he wants, which is a little bit of division, enough to where we're not all together and we're not unified. And then guess what? The community's all fragmented and doing whatever we want, right? And running off in different directions. Versus if we're all actually sharing our story, then if it's edifying Christ, then he takes that and he goes, thank you, I can work with this. I will take what's broken. I will be the cornerstone and build, So I don't know if that was a clear answer, but that's what I've experienced over the last year.
It's your answer. That's what matters.
I like to what you said, Rick. It's awesome to see just the community as a whole and what the things that are happening and the rumblings and the excitement of like what's to come. Like the things that we don't even know have yet to come. That it's like, man, where's this going?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's your turn to land the plane, Rick.
Land it.
I don't know how to fly.
Landing gears all down. Gotta stick it.
Hold you down. Tower's cleared for landing.
Yes.
All right. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we thank you for this evening of testimony and witness that we have been able to bring to a platform where it can be heard and experienced by many. We pray that in what the Holy Spirit has guided in this conversation tonight, that those who hear it would be moved in some way, shape, or form. Moved especially to action. Moved from a place of being stagnant, maybe from a place of complacency, into a place where we step out of our comfort zones for you and for the expansion of your kingdom. We thank you for the gift of Eli and his life. We thank you for the many ways that you have worked in his life, and for all of the fruit that his and Jamie's marriage has brought forward, specifically in these soon-to-be 7 beautiful souls that they have created, and are doing their very best to raise them to be souls for your kingdom. We thank you for sparing his life in the heart attack, and for all of the lessons learned from that. And we just continue to pray for the grace moving forward to just continue with that fervor and that fire to better himself physically and spiritually out of it. And we just pray that those who heard that story that was told tonight would be like a candle that touches his candle, that also in turn lights a blaze and feels that fire to try to improve in some way, shape, or form, physically and spiritually as well. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
All glory be to the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the
Beginning is now and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.